What is up, fight fans, and welcome to a new edition of the Scrap Report. I am, of course, Jason Burgos, and with me, as always, is the Herald of Hate, following an arduous, long journey back from Zamunda. He's back at home in his headquarters, and that is the one and only Anthony Walker. Senor Hakeem, how are you today?
I'm feeling pretty good today, man. I'm still getting over the jet lag of being back in the States, but happy to be home and ready to rock, man.
You know, I'm wrong. You're not Hakeem. I'm Hakeem. You're Semi.
Whoa, let's not get ridiculous here. Although Simi had a good life, you know what I'm saying? Simi was living it up. I can't imagine being punished by being banished to a luxury hotel suite with 3 beautiful women. Like sounds like a good punishment to me.
No responsibilities, not getting having to get forced into marriage. It's not a bad deal. That said, we have a whole lot of topics to talk about. Of course, wherever you're watching, listening to this, whatever platform, please like, share, subscribe. Hit the subscribe button on our page. But we're gonna talk about a lot of topics today. We're gonna do a little preview predictions on Canelo Alvarez's fight against Edgar Berlanga. We're gonna also do some previews and predictions for UFC 306, also known as Noche UFC. We're also going to talk about some possibilities of a women's BMF belt, which I love that idea. Also, going back to UFC, to Noche UFC ticket sales, not going as good as UFC would have hoped for that event. And we're going to talk about some interesting news about the possibility of some big pay-per-views on the horizon, and boxing being only $20. I love that idea as well. But first, let's get to some boxing talk and talk of Canelo Alvarez versus Edgar Berlanga. His fight's coming up. It's coming up on I think it's the 15th, right?
The 14th.
14th, next Saturday from when we're recording this right now, so we're doing it in advance. Just some fun facts on the fight going into it. Alvarez is 61-2-2. He hasn't gotten a knockout or TKO in 3 years, which is wild to me. Canelo's very much in his Mayweather era of not really get his Kamaru Usman, his Israel Adesanya era of not really getting as many finishes as he used to. Berlanga, New York native, Puerto Rican, 22-0, but hasn't had many big wins. This is a huge step up in competition. The first thing I want to ask before we even get into predictions, you are one of our premier boxing experts and covering it for the site on Ringside Intel. Like, give me a reason why. Give the people that are or maybe they're like the independent voter in this upcoming election. They like Canelo, but they know his fights haven't been as interesting lately. He just fought Jaime Munguia. Why should a fan feel that Berlanga is any different and any more of a threat to Canelo than Jaime Munguia was?
Well, I think he brings a different mindset to the whole thing. But we've seen guys with different mindsets step up to Canelo and eventually sort of whimper out toward the distance. Yeah. And Berlanga could fall into that same category. We just haven't seen him do anything like that as of yet. We've seen Berlanga has taken some punishment over his career. He's been dropped and cracked and everything, and still come back to win. So I think just that sort of live underdog feel is probably the biggest selling point for Berlanga, if you ask me. But at the end of the day, we're talking about an undefeated fighter who's making a name for himself. Obviously, the man is a professional boxer without any defeat, so that means he probably knows how to fight, and he might be good at punching people. So he could punch Canelo, and Canelo could get hurt from said punch. So, I think that's a good enough selling point. It's a fight. Anything can happen.
And that's kind of the sad state of Canelo's career. And, he can do whatever he wants. He can fight whoever he wants. It's his party. He gets to do what he wants to. But it really, it's a sad kind of point for such a guy that really was on a trajectory to kind of just being one of the most beloved fighters, not only of his era, just of all time. Just unique record, so many fights. He has the same kind of traditional Mexican style of fighting, but even elevated to that elite level. And now he's just at this point where he's just fighting winnable fights and getting as much money as possible. And it just seems like avoiding the toughest fights. And it's like that Triple G, those first 2 fights have just completely changed how he approaches boxing. And it's not as fan friendly as most would hope. And that's where we're going. We have to look at puncher's chance to be interested in a Canelo fight, especially when going back to what we're going to talk about later with pay-per-view prices, these aren't cheap events. This is an expensive event to hope we get a competitive fight. And with Munguia, we got something solid, but in the end, he pulled away from Munguia, made that interesting. I guess I'll go with my prediction first. I hope it happens that I hope Canelo gets a finish. Hopefully at least he gives the fans that are in attendance that do plunk down their money to watch this. I think he will. I don't think Berlanga is as good as Munguia. I think Munguia is a tougher fighter and, a little bit more skilled. And like you mentioned with Berlanga, this is a guy that can be hit. And I just feel like this is almost perfectly set up for Canelo to finally get a finish and an emphatic one, and maybe quiet some of the doubters about his place in the pound for pound, stuff like that. I'll go 10th round TKO for Canelo. How are you seeing this fight play out?
I'm going to follow Canelo's blueprint here. I was at one of the pre-fight press conferences in Los Angeles where he said he wanted this to go to the 8th round, and that's where he was going to look for the finish. I believe he gets it done just like that. Like Berlanga, as tough as he is, that sort of mentality I think will be his downfall here. Where Munguia and like Charlo, where they were able to make it to the distance because they felt that power initially, and then they kind of go into more of a shell. And and then becomes like this race to survive to the end. I don't think Berlanga is going to have that, and that's what's going to open him up to something devastating landing. But I do want to give you a little bit of pushback on Canelo's career trajectory as of late. I don't think it was the Triple G fights that changed him. I think it was the fight against Dimitri Bivol. He was really, really chasing greatness there. And I think no matter what his fights look like now, we're still talking about one of the best to ever lace up a pair of gloves, and still has an exceptional record and has this resume of all these great names. He chased greatness a little too high. He flew too close to the sun against someone like Bivol and paid the price for it. And I think after that experience, it sort of changed the way he looked at it. When you're still one of the biggest stars in sports, not just in combat sports, in sports period, and you can command top dollar, well, let's keep the gravy train running as long as we can. I think he's earned that at this point in his career.
He has, and I don't want to take away from his place as a legend, but man, I feel like he's kind of a what if in that he had the talents of the elite fighters like a Juan Manuel Marquez and Julio Cesar Chavez, but he had the matinee appeal of a Oscar De La Hoya. He had the best of both to be a legitimate superstar, and he is a legitimate superstar, but unlike those guys, he's not fighting the best of the end. That frustrates me. And trust me, as a die-in-the-wool De La Hoya fan, there was a lot of fights I wish he would have won, but I respected to the end that he fought Hopkins, he fought Shane Mosley, he fought bigger guys, he took on bigger risks. Pacquiao, like he fought like Pacquiao, Mayweather, Bernard Hopkins in like his last 4 or 5 fights. It was like 3 of the best ever. Guys. Yeah, he fought everybody, and he lost. It is what it is. It's just frustrating because in the end, Canelo still has had some prime years, and we didn't get to see him face the best of the best. And if he fights a David Benavidez, if a Terence Crawford now and somehow lost, it'll be like, he probably wasn't as premium, but he's a little older. It's like, just missed opportunities. And those always frustrating.
I mean, this is sort of the state of boxing in and of itself. I mean, look at who Alvarez sort of built his star off the back of, and that's Floyd Mayweather. Like Mayweather has set the blueprint, but this is how you make the most amount of money. This is how you keep things going for as long as possible. And Alvarez borrowed some from that playbook, but he still goes out there and gets it in. Like it may not be exactly what it looked like before, but it's not, Mayweather's defensive exhibition. As wonderful as the skills are to be able to do that, like he's still going in there and taking risks inside of the ring, even if it's not against the absolute best of competition.
No, that's fair. So moving on from that, let's get into some more preview and prediction talk. Let's go on to Noche UFC, aka UFC 306. As always, if you've watched the show in the past, we're not gonna go through all the fights and everything. We're gonna just focus on the biggest fights. And this card's it's top heavy. There's some solid fighters on the beginning of the main card and the prelims, but the top 3 fights are actually very good fights. And that is Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez, Alexa Grasso defending her title against Valentina Shevchenko rematch, and of course one of the fights I've been most looking forward to in the second half of this year and just 2024 in general. Sean O'Malley versus Merab Dvalishvili. First, let's get into Ortega, Diego Lopes. As of now, Lopes is a favorite, which says a lot about where Ortega has gone in his career. Nothing against, he's still a good fighter, but not that highly touted kind of elite of the featherweight division like he used to be. Ortega's 2-2 in his last 4 fights in 2020, though he did beat Yair Rodriguez in a rematch, big win. He beat Korean Zombie in one of those 2 wins. On the flip side, Diego Lopes, after getting handed an absolutely tough situation of being short notice versus Movsar Evloev, has won 4 straight. All finishes, and the only one that wasn't a finish was against Dan Ige, who's traditionally a very tough guy to kind of finish, and he still beat him soundly. A fighter that I've been a fan of ever since he came up. This guy can finish you on the feet. He can finish you on the ground. Very interesting. I don't think it's a fight like, oh, you get it to a ground, he's overmatched by Ortega. How do you see this fight playing out? What's your prediction?
Man, this is one I honestly just don't know what to expect. I mean, we don't see enough of Brian Ortega to have a real assessment of what he has to offer. And the thing about Brian Ortega is, like, he always looks like he's one of 2 people. Either one, he is this world beater that just buzzsaws through whoever's in front of him, or he's a guy who's too tough for his own good and gets dinged and bopped upside the head till there's no end. And even in a lot of his wins, he's gotten dinged and bopped upside the head enough to where you question, how long can this keep going? I'm sort of leaning toward Diego Lopez kind of pushing him over the edge, and this kind of being the end of Brian Ortega as we know him. So I like Lopez to get a finish here. I'm thinking 3rd round TKO.
Yeah, I'm going the same direction. I think it'll be on the feet. He'll prove that he's more than capable enough to avoid submission, or a difficult situation on the ground. I think he's got big power in his hands. We saw it in a lot of his fights in the UFC so far. And it just feels like that kind of classic changing of the guard, like Ilia Topuria and Volkanovski was. Volkanovski and Ortega are still very good fighters, but their time came and it's kind of passing out at the back end of the career. So that's what it feels like. Diego Lopez is the next evolution. He's the next big star of the division.
You know, and I also think too, it means a lot to me that the UFC rebooked this fight, because like when this fight fell apart a few months back, I know you and we talked, as you know, I always mention on the show, like during the fights, we're always texting each other and giving our hot takes and whatnot. And we both were like, yeah, let's just not revisit Ortega versus Lopez. The MMA gods have spoken. They don't want this fight to take place for whatever reason. Let's just leave it alone. Ortega clearly might have trouble making the weight, and let Lopez just go off of this win and move forward with his career. The UFC rebooking this means they really, really want this to happen, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And I think if they're seeing the greatness in Lopez that a lot of people are seeing, maybe they've figured that Ortega is the right stepping stone for that. They got to rebook this for a reason, man. That's another thing that makes me think that Lopez is walking away with a victory here.
Yeah, it's classic UFC booking for the next big fighter. Moving on, talking about another does feel in a way like a changing regards. Alexa Grasso versus Valentina Shevchenko. Alexa's a slight favorite going into this fight. Grasso won the first one by submission late in the fight, of a fight that a lot of people thought she was probably losing, which is just the magic of a sport like MMA. She's on a 5-fight win streak, though she hasn't fought in 18 months. That is also the case for Valentina Shevchenko. Both of them haven't fought in 18 months because the fight was booked for a few months ago, fell through, whatever reasons. Shevchenko, though, is 36, but 9-fight winning streak heading into this before she lost to Grasso. I'm a huge Shevchenko fan. Love Bullet. I think she's one of the greatest female fighters of all time. One of the great fighters of this last generation, male or female. But everything comes to an end. And on paper, it's like, oh, she won 9 straight. She she was winning that fight late. She's still good. I just don't like the combination of 36, 18 months off against a fighter that is one of the better fighters in the division that was able to get her, mistake or not. It just feels like what we've seen so many times where a fighter can be great for so long and then they hit a wall against the elites and it just all falls apart. I think I'm going to go with Grasso by this. I'll go unanimous decision. It'll be a close fight. Wouldn't be surprised if it comes down to the final round and it ends up, whoever gets that 5th round is going to get it. But yeah, I'm going to go Grasso, unanimous decision, and retaining the women's flyweight title. How do you see this fight going?
I've got Grasso winning this by decision as well. I think that if anything, this fight is a good example of why the Ultimate Fighter just needs to die off. Like just let the show die off. Like it sucks. Like it's just not a good product anymore. It hasn't been a good product for what, like 10, 15 years at this point. Just let it go. Let it go out to pasture. I mean, this was one. I think the UFC is always too quick to pull the trigger on a trilogy fight. But it's especially weird to have a trilogy fight where like these two have not seen anyone but each other, and so much time has taken place between every fight. The Ultimate Fighter just feels like this huge like distraction in the middle of all this that no one seems to really care about. So whatever luster this fight could have had, whatever luster this trilogy fight might have possibly had, not that I'm going to say that there was much, but whatever was there is gone now. It's gone. This fight feels like a relic of the past to me, despite the fact that Alexa Grasso is very, very much so the current flyweight champion. It doesn't feel like a current day event. I don't know. It's just weird, man. The Ultimate Fighter just sucks. Get rid of the show. That being said, Grasso won the first fight in sort of a flukish manner. I don't want to put any disrespect on her win, but it was sort of a flukish manner. She was clearly losing. She found a quick opportunity, seized it, got the title after the submission. The second fight, she handled Shevchenko far better throughout the duration.
Yeah.
I think the younger fighter that had more room to improve is going to do better for the third time against the veteran who is sort of aging out of that spot. So feels like this should have happened already, right?
Yeah, like she was losing the first one, but got her second fight. She didn't lose. She almost won a split decision. Yeah, it just feels like the momentum is heading in her direction.
Yeah.
Speaking of momentum, I mean the main event. I love this fight. Two fighters that are red hot with that, and I love this fight because it's not a fight like we're getting in middleweight soon with Alex Bajeda and a Khalil Roundtree that just has no business happening, and Roundtree does not need to be fighting for title. These are the two best bantamweights on the planet right now. These are the two. Merab has completely proved that Sean O'Malley is a superstar. Now, going into this fight, Sean O'Malley is actually an underdog. It's been a little bit since he's been an underdog. I think I'm not sure. Maybe he was against Aljo.
Against Jan. Well, actually, no. Against Aljo, he should have been the underdog. I'm pretty certain he was.
But even then, he was probably close. So he's won 7 of his last 8. Last wins against Marlon Vera, just dominant. Stopped Aljo in his last 2 fights. Merab Dvalishvili, 10-fight win streak. Last few wins: Cejudo, Jan, Aldo, Hall of Fame. Those, I mean, all great. But you can say, oh, well, Aldo's all that. Whatever. Aldo's still good. A few months ago, he came out of retirement, still looked good. And Peter Yan, we both are huge Peter Yan fans, and Cejudo is fantastic. So even before we, no, I'll get to that after we do our picks. This is such a good fight. Classic striker versus grappler kind of thing. But just such like Sean was like that next level of kind of fighter, a lot like Israel Adesanya in terms of striker. And then Merab is just his name, the machine, is so perfect. He's a grappling machine. His relentless effort, tenacity is second to none. This is such a tough one for me to pick. How do you see this one going?
Man, I'm thinking I'm going to be in the minority here, but I'm picking Sean O'Malley to win this one.
Okay.
Merab Dvalishvili is certainly second, if not the best bantamweight in the world, but I think the styles don't match up very well for him. The game plan against Sean O'Malley, especially for someone with the skill set of Merab, seems very simple, right? To just crowd him, try to take him down, smother him, and just make it a really slow pace, sort of grinding fight. But I don't like the quality of Merab's takedowns against O'Malley, against the footwork, against his just takedown defense against the cage, his ability to sort of get underhooks and whizzer and whatnot. I don't like it because Merab is a guy who seems to spam takedowns. Like it's more like cardio as a weapon, and as effective as that can be, it's harder to enact if you've got more range that you've got to fight through, and you've got such a dangerous striker on the other end of that. I think Merab gets pieced up on his way to put hands on O'Malley in order to do any of this. And the fact that he's probably not going to do this with the most sophisticated setups, without like this really clinical wrestling approach, means he's just going to be open to more punishment. I think this goes really bad for Merab.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me to pick. I'd like to, I just feel like Merab is going to win, and usually the idea would be, oh, okay, he's going against an elite striker. This is a guy who will know how to see it coming. But I mean, that's what he's faced. He fought Peter Yan. There's not much better than that. He fought Jose Aldo. It's not much better than that. Even Cejudo is a very smart striker who also blends his wrestling and striking well. It's hard for me to get past. Like, he's passed all the tests. I know Sean O'Malley is elite, and yeah, I'll be rooting for Sean O'Malley. I like him as a fighter, what he brings to the sport, but even he still is unproven that he can definitely, because he got Aljo out there early. He did some good things against Aljo in terms of grappling, but I feel like his grappling still unproven. This is the fight, though. This is the fight where if he can get past Merab, and after beating Aljo too, like the question of, oh, well, maybe a grappler can get to him. Yeah, maybe, but they try and they fail. Like, this is the moment where it's like he goes from being a popular fighter to a legit fighter, maybe one of the best pound for pound. I'm going to pick Merab. I think, especially if it gets long, the longer the fight goes, I wouldn't be surprised. It's in his favor because he's just a cardio machine. So I'm going to go Merab. I think he can. I can see him get like a 4th round submission, just relentless. He's double tough. Even if he gets hit, he seems to battle through everything. But going to the point of if Sean wins this fight, what that means for him as a fighter. But either way, whoever wins this fight, because this is 2 elite fighters, is the winner of this fight, be it O'Malley beats an elite bantamweight, the biggest challenge in the world in his division, and passes that hurdle, or Merab adds Sean O'Malley to now an 11-fight win streak after beating Cejudo. Like, is either one of them should be considered top 3 pound for pound on the planet after this fight? They win.
Maybe not top 3, maybe top 5.
So who is better than them in the top 3? Because I'll put Pereira in front of them.
Yeah, Pereira,
I'll put Islam in front of them. But who else is in front of them then? That's the question.
Point. That's a good point. Like, I think I might have spoke like too soon before I really thought about it. I want Dana White to come through the door in one of our houses right now and yell at us about how John Jones is number 1. That's what I want now. That's the only thing that makes sense. Dude.
Well, his on you can go to our UFC rankings on Ringside. The setup is we have Pereira and Islam at the top. Now, these are the guys that have, other than John, Ilya Topuria, we got Volk Aslafor, and we got Bilal Muhammad or Alexander Pantoja. Are any of those guys, do you feel, maybe better than Merab or Sean after a win over each other? I feel like maybe Topuria, but I feel like Topuria doesn't have the resume of Merab, and he doesn't have the star appeal and the skill set of Sean. Sean just feels like it's such a next level elite striker. Nothing to get Topuria, but I feel like top 3 they kind of have to be after if they get this win.
Maybe I mean I might put Aspinall above them. Aspinall or even Bilal Muhammad, I think makes a very good case. How long his unbeaten streak ran and what he did to Leon Edwards, but it's certainly not out of the question that whoever wins is top 3 pound for pound. That's not a ludicrous idea, but I do think it means something different if O'Malley wins. If Merab wins, we've got a bantamweight champion. We've got a new bantamweight champion. He's going to go do what bantamweight champions do, and that's fight other bantamweights and continue to rule over his division until someone stops him, right? O'Malley, on the other hand, if he beats Davishvili, and especially if he gets a highlight reel out of it, I think the UFC marketing machine gets a serious chubby, and they go to town with the ideas and the things that they can do with Sean O'Malley as far as cross-divisional matchups and marketing opportunities and whatnot. It becomes a different level of stardom if O'Malley gets an emphatic victory here.
Now, of course, wherever you're listening, watching, please like, share, subscribe. Give us your thoughts. How do you see Canelo Alvarez and Edgar Berlanga go? How do you see the top 3 fights of UFC 306 going? Please, in the comment section, let us know some of your picks for those fights. Moving on, just going to hit some news before we get out of here. We covered it on Ringside. I love this idea. Jessica Andrade, who's fighting this week and as we're recording, if she wins her fight, she is claiming, now that's a big if, we'll see, that she would like to call for her next fight for a title fight, but it's not for a title fight at flyweight, it's not for a title fight at strawweight. She wants to bring about the first women's BMF belt, and I love it because we've talked about huge Andrade fan. She's a perfect person to be in a women's BMF fight, but she claims she's actually been on the horn recently with Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and Joanna is thinking about unretiring for a possible BMF fight. Anthony, does this fight just need to happen, win or lose for Andrade? I feel like the history of BMF fights, it's not about fighters that have relevancy in the division about to get touched by. It's stars who will put on a show, and this is a fight without, this is like outside Marvel continuity. I feel like this is the perfect, they're going to do women's BMF. This is the fight that has to be it.
If you're doing a women's BMF fight with the current roster, then Andrade has to be in that fight. It's just that simple. Like, this is someone who has gone up and down the scale and been a top contender in 3 divisions, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. I think she fought. She fought at bantamweight. She started at bantamweight.
Yeah,
right?
Started up at bantamweight. Fought to title shots at flyweight and strawweight. Like, knocked out people in all 3 weight classes. Yeah, this is a BMF. This is like, Andrade is one of those people that when she steps into the cage, you know something really fun is going to happen. Like, that's just standard across the board with her. Something exciting is going to happen. Now, as far as Joanna Jędrzejczyk, I think she has an historical BMF claim, but we're talking about someone who hasn't fought in, when was the last time she fought?
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah.
I have a hard time backing someone who hasn't fought in 2 years.
Yeah, no, it's fair. And I'm sure there's some fighters that can make a case, but it just, if you're gonna do it and you're gonna put sellability into it and make it interesting, the unretirement of Joanna, one of the greatest of all time, that's a great selling point, and that's an easy co-main event on a pay-per-view. Her, and even if she loses, whatever, like, you know, the fight, they fought once before in a good fight, so it has some relevancy too. And for this title, you know, I hope it happens. I would love to see it happen. Moving on from there, kind of circling back a little bit, we're gonna to UFC, to Noche UFC 306. A lot of talk about this event. It's gonna be in the Las Vegas Sphere, and Dana White has let everybody know he's paying a lot of money for this, supposedly. And you covered it for Ringside Intel. Production is going to cost $20 million for this. And for the folks that don't know, just give us a summation for the people that maybe missed the story this week. What is going on with Noche UFC tickets for this event in the now world famous Las Vegas Sphere? Why the ticket prices are falling?
Well, I mean, the ticket prices are falling simply because people aren't buying them, so they've got to sell them off. Like, it's just really. But
why
simple.
Aren't they?
Because they priced out people who live regular lives and are just casual, well, not even necessarily casual, just UFC fans. They've priced them out. So initially the tickets, like the cheapest ticket in the house was somewhere between $2,500 and $3,000. You know, the cheap, like, so you're talking about the highest up, furthest away from the cage, maybe blocked by a pillar or something like that, and you're shelling out, you know, $3,000 to sit there. Yeah, the average person cannot afford that, you know, and never mind the state of the economy and how a lot of people are struggling right now to make ends meet. $3,000 is a lot of money to pay to see a sporting event that you can watch on TV. It's a lot of money. And then on top of that, they were struggling to sell tickets even before Canelo Alvarez decided he was going to reclaim Mexican Independence Day and be 2 miles away at T-Mobile Arena for a far lower asking price. So yesterday, as I was writing up the article, I checked Ticketmaster for what it costs to go to Noche UFC, and it was. And I know there were some resales in there. I think the highest resale was around 10,000, and that was for a VIP section that's like right next to the cage or whatever. I don't know. I've never been to the Sphere. I don't know how everything's laid out, but according to the little map on the screen, it was very close to the cage. And I think the cheapest ticket dropped from $3,000 to $700, $706 or something like that, or $750. Yeah, something like that. So a significant drop off.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, at T-Mobile Arena to watch Canelo Alvarez, and keep in mind, this isn't just a Canelo Alvarez card. This is a pretty stacked card. Rolly Romero and Caleb Plant are also on this card too. There's some other names that are notable that are fighting, that are recognizable to the general public. They're fighting on this card too, and the cheapest ticket there was around 300, I think it was, and a ringside seat went up to, I think, about 3,000. So we're talking about far more affordable prices that the average person has a much better chance. And there's, despite all the boxing versus MMA talk, the bleed over between fans is very clear. Like, there are a lot of people who love mixed martial arts and love boxing. If you love mixed martial arts, you probably love boxing too. And if you love boxing, you probably at least have an appreciation for mixed martial arts. So we're talking about the same audience for the same dollars. If I'm in Las Vegas, or if I'm traveling to Las Vegas and I see a ticket for the Sphere for, $700, and I see a ticket for $300 to see Canelo just a couple miles away, I might go Canelo. I just might do that because it's cheaper. Like, there's more money to buy beer. there's more money to gamble with. There's more money to enjoy the ladies of the night in Vegas. There's a lot more money to do other things. So I think that's really what's going on now. Now, the production costs, that is, $20 million. That's a lot of money. That's like 2 times what I make here at Ringside Intel.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you are one of our top free agent additions. But like that begs a question. Is this a bad idea that was a vanity project by Dana, that he's already said he's never gonna do an event ever again at this place? I think I saw a story recently that the Sphere in general has been a bit of a losing situation for the building. Like the CFO might have recently quit the job and resigned because of major losses. So in general, doing anything there is super expensive. Was it a bad idea as a vanity project, or is there any way that doing this event, which this place has captivated, the imagination of a lot of people in Vegas and outside, because it is so cool, it's so high tech, it's so next level. Is there any way that this event, do you think, can actually expand the UFC brand? Is that the fact that it's in the Sphere, maybe that it's a unique thing to pull away from a Canelo fight? In general, was it worth it for the UFC to spend $20 million on this damn show?
I don't know. I don't think anyone knows until we see what the product looks like. And
I want to see it.
I want to see it. I want to see it. Like, now, I don't know if it's the idea of it sounds good on paper, but it could be very, very overwhelming to be in a building, LED lights and screens and whatnot, and have a fight going on in front of you, and then whatever images of the fight surrounding you, that might just be sensory overload. It could just be a very overwhelming experience. I do like that the UFC is at least daring to be different and daring to be great and trying something, because we constantly complain about the staleness of the product. They always use the same cage floor. They always use a cage. They refuse to use a ring at all. They own the IP to Strikeforce and LFA and Pride and Cage Rage and all these promotions. They never use it, right? They never mix up the gloves. They always do things exactly the way they do them, no matter where they are. But now they're doing something different. So I'm happy to see that. I don't know what the end product looks like, but it also too, like, as far as the building itself, it costs like $2.5 billion to build this thing. There are going to be some losses. Like, they're not going to recover that money anytime soon. So I do think the UFC is going to lose money on this as far as the production costs. They're going to lose money on this. But if it's an investment into a greater overall product in the future, cool. Dana said couple days ago after the Contender Series that a lot of the technology that they're using, like some of the cameras and some of the techniques that they're using for editing and whatnot, is stuff that's going to carry over into other events. If we see something spectacular on the 14th, and then after that the product just looks cooler, they're different, then hey, it's a net win. I'll take it.
And just the final point of this, I saw somewhere, I think it was on Instagram, it was a meme on the losses at the Sphere. And it was showing the Sphere, Noche UFC, with like how it looks and the view from the outside, and then the week after Noche UFC, it would be going to become a Spirit Halloween shop. And I was like, wow, damn, messed up, but I can see it, and that'd be hilarious at the same time. So moving up from there, please, again, wherever you're listening, watching, like, share, subscribe. What do you think about the UFC, Noche UFC going up against Canelo fight? Which one are you going to watch? Is the fact that it's in the Sphere more intriguing for you for UFC 306 and you want to watch it? Let us know. Last topic, since we're talking about money in a combat sports game, Turki Alalshikh is plotting something we talked about, and I think all fans really want. And the idea is because he has the money to do it, so it don't matter to him when you have billions in Saudi money, and that's the idea of charging only $20. And I know you mentioned in an article you covered for there's some events that might be even less than that. Major events like the Anthony Joshua fight coming up, only going to be $20. He wants the idea is to kind of cut down on piracy because, again, it's so expensive. You get these events 70, 80, close to $100, mattering how big the fight is, to watch. And you really just maybe watch it for one fight. Now, at least in boxing, they're starting to do things with it's 3-4 fights that are worthwhile on a card now. But also want to mention too, Dana White, that idea was, it got back to Dana White. His response to this was, trust me, we know exactly how to combat piracy. I won't tell you extensively what we do every event, but we go after piracy hard. You saw a few years ago that we started prosecuting people. That's how you combat piracy. Start effing prosecuting people for stealing. There you go. So obviously UFC is not going to be changing their prices anytime soon, even though they were recently blaming Disney or whatever or ESPN for their pricing plan, but they ain't going to change the price anyway. I don't know how you don't love this idea. Like, I mean, it's, talk about the Saudis trying to whitewash things and fix their reputation. This helps. If you're a fighting fan,
like human rights. What human rights violations?
Yeah, the violation, the atrocities are terrible. But man, this helps the guy's wallet. Thoughts on this $20 for big fights? Amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to be a fight fan from just a pure monetary standpoint. Never mind, like the mental space you have to like take in all of this content and try to keep up with all these weight classes, and especially with boxing. Like boxing is just a wild look into scattered information in all these different corners of the world. But man, like to make it cheaper just sounds like a fantastic idea for fans. Like now let's not pretend like Turki Alalshikh is doing this because he cares about people and that he's a nice guy. I mean, this is the face of whitewashing, or sports washing some horrible atrocities, and and look up his alleged role in the killing of a journalist. If you want a little bit to think about, but so I probably should watch what I say next time I go to an event. But anyway, but anyway, like this is a business investment right here. Saudi Arabia is throwing a ton of money at combat sports between their investments in PFL, their partnership with the WWE, and now this partnership with the UFC as they are co-promoting Noche UFC, directly competing with Canelo, who's become sort of this new rival for Turki Alalshikh. This is simply a business move. They're throwing money at this thing, and they need to see a return on their investment. Now, it may seem like Saudi Arabia has endless amounts of money to throw at fight sports, and for all intents and purposes, they do. However, there's a point where they're just going to get tired of spending money if they're not getting anything back. And from what we've heard, some of the reports of their previous fights, like the Fury Ngannou card and Ngannou Joshua, Fury Usyk as well, they actually lost money on those. Between all the payouts, between the production, between flying in all these different celebrities and fighters and paying them fees to appear, and throwing money at Mike Tyson to make him pretend like he was training in Ghana, all this stuff. They're throwing a lot of money at this, and they need to see it back. So if the way to do that is to lower the price so there's less excuse for fans to pirate, then so be it. Then that's what you do. Now, as far as Dana White's approach to this thing, I mean, this is, I think, the exact sort of example you can use as to why he's probably not needed in mixed martial arts today. This sort of mentality, this sort of take no prisoners and you're not backing down, you're not compromising, was fantastic when this sport was on the outskirts of civilization and we needed someone to champion the sport as we know it and make sure that it's preserved. So you didn't have someone that was so willing to compromise to then where now, oh, you can't punch, oh, the gloves have to be boxing size gloves, and then essentially you get at the end of the day, after you compromise with all the politicians and all the cable companies, you get and the sanctioning bodies, you get this watered down version that looks sort of like what maybe it could have been MMA, but they're not allowed to knee and they're not allowed to elbow and they can only be on the ground for 2 seconds and just really silly things like that. And ground and pound is illegal and all. Like, we needed someone who was not going to let that happen.
Yeah,
that hasn't happened. MMA is one of the biggest sports in the world now, and the biggest moneymaker certainly in combat sports. We don't need that sort of thinking now at the top of the food chain. We need someone who's willing to compromise on certain things. And when you're talking about keeping your fans watching your product and paying you money to do it, you might have to compromise. Never mind the fact that ESPN Plus is just rife with all of these serious technical issues where literally every single ESPN pay-per-view, every UFC, I don't think this happens in boxing. I don't remember happening anytime I've watched a boxing match, but every UFC pay-per-view that I've watched through ESPN Plus has had some sort of technical issue. Like everyone, without exception. And when I don't have one, everyone else seems to too. So now you've given, not only do you keep raising the price in a tough economy, you're also watering down the cards themselves. So the cards are not as good quality as they used to be. There's less and less star power to divvy out on these cards. And then when you buy it legally, you may not even be able to watch it because the technology is going to fail.
Yeah.
I mean, but and instead of actually trying to fix those problems, instead of actually trying to meet fans somewhere in the middle, the approach is to, oh, we're going to throw you all in jail. PR is fantastic, buddy.
He's very much the Vince McMahon of MMA. I mean, he's helped to take the sport onto high, heights, and is a genius for what he's done and making the UFC brand just like the WWE brand. Just a global thing, but we're seeing these just signs of just he's not a good person. He's just not a great human being. And beyond like the Trump stuff and beyond, and the slapping your wife in a club of hundreds of people. And this is another example, just like ruthlessness for a business. But moving on, away from that and back to the idea, it's you nailed it. It's business. It's a smart business move, and true. The Saudis and Turki Alalshikh is gonna want that money back, but they can drown a couple billion for the next 4 or 5 years, and if it's worth it, that it makes it a brand, and if people know what Riyadh season is, and they knew about fight, it's worth it. They're not a normal company that has to make it work, and you fake it till you make it for a year or two, and you throw a lot of money, and then either go out of business or you change your style of approach to revenue and what you're going to use. They can do this for like years, just throw money at things, and it's a smart move. It's great brand recognition. Wait, there's a company that or somebody that has big fighters that I can watch that fight for $20 effing. There's a reason why Wendy's and all these brands and Skechers still exist, because people want a deal. Skechers. And there's a reason why there's still a Biggie Bag, and there's a reason why mother effers still get Domino's, even though it's most pizza, because people want a deal. So for fight fans, a $20 deal is a fantastic option. Despite all his negative things and everything like that, I like that he's at least trying to build a brand by getting to the average person that wants to watch these things, and that's the person that's loyal. Someone that wants to watch it but can't afford it. Now they can afford it, and they'll watch that crap all the time.
Yeah.
You want to subscribe to something? I'm there. You only charge me $20. We're in an era where Netflix is now like $20 and stuff like that. There was a time it was like $5-6, So you can watch a major fight. I absolutely love it. I hope he does it. I hope he does it for a good, hard year. And you know what? I haven't purchased many boxing pay-per-views in a long time. I will start watching them because it's $20 freaking.
Yeah.
And I can write it off of my taxes anyway, but I will watch it.
Yeah, I mean, it says something when like the illegal streams are better quality than what you actually buy.
Yes.
It says a lot. It says a whole lot to be able to watch. I've seen people do this to order a pay-per-view, and then you're not able to watch it because something goes wrong, and then you just pull up on your computer on another tab, illegal stream. Oh, beautiful, crystal clear picture. Oh, no sound interruptions. Oh, no weird stats popping up and crazy things happening. But then you look at it this way too. You go on these illegal streams, right? And sometimes they don't operate very well. Like you got to refresh them, and things pop up and whatnot. Well, when that's the norm, and you can take $20 and not have those problems.
Yes.
Man, that $20, man, sounds a lot better. Now, if you say that price is $80, I might hit refresh a few more times. I might just deal with it. But if it's 20, I'm much more likely to open my wallet.
Yep. Especially when you got movie tickets that are like almost $20 in certain cities. As a person that was just in New York, that's like normal and stuff like that. So, and especially if they're smart enough, and this is the way the world is going, where you're packaging things. We're in a world now where you can get a deal for Hulu, ESPN Plus, Disney Plus, and Max. Those are two different companies. So if you can do a thing where you can watch boxing, like a bunch of boxing fights, and you get like BKFC 2 on an app, best of both worlds. $20, no problem.
I'm down. I'm game. Yeah. Like that's exactly like you have to make this friendly for the consumer. Yeah. And that's I think the way Dana White approaches this is not necessarily making it friendly for the consumer. It's like assuming the consumer is going to be there regardless. And that is a very dangerous approach when money is on the line here, where but the man is importing snow. I don't think he's gonna have any money issues, but it's showing. No. It's the class is showing, right?
And also it just not $20 and then $20 subscription fee, and then I gotta like $20 and that's it. That's the problem. That's why DAZN is good, but it is what it is, because you got a subscription to good content, but then for the stuff you really want, you got to pay more. Same thing with ESPN, but that is enough for us. We've hit our limit. As always, please like, share, hit the subscribe button to our channel wherever you listen, wherever you watch. Let us know what you think of all these things. But until next time, people, this has been an all-new edition of the Scrap Report. I am Jason Burgos. He is Anthony Walker. Bye-bye.